Hello and welcome to the Business of Story. This special episode is brought to you by Voices, the world's #1 creative service marketplace with over 2 million registered users. Visit voices.com for voiceover talent, audio production, music composition, and translation services with professionals in over 160 countries. That's voices.com. And hello there. I'm Park Howell, your host, and I am so glad you are here with us today because we have two gents who have built a global swim school empire by simply helping people propel their life forward. But it didn't come as easy as you think. Like all entrepreneurs, they fought hard to keep their heads above water.
Sometimes you just don't feel there's any point you're going to meet success. I'm telling you, if we were on our own, it would be a complete disaster. I would have tapped out a long time ago. And a lot of people want, we're Americans, right? We want to do this on our own. We're individualistic. And I think it's a big lie. I think we need each other.
You know what they say, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go with others. Paul Preston and Ron Sciarro are co-founders of Aqua-Tots Swim Schools, who together built the world's largest swim school franchise from one pool in 2005 to now serving 120 communities across 14 countries. Ron oversees leadership development, training, and operations strategy, helping franchise owners and their senior leadership teams with the execution of franchise systems within the Aqua-Tots core values. Paul is president of Aqua-Tots Swim Schools Franchise Holdings and oversees strategic planning, growth, and franchise development of all Aqua-Tots openings worldwide. Now, I was fortunate to work with Ron and Paul a couple of years ago to help them dial in their brand story for even more focused growth. So please welcome to the Business of Story for an in-person exclusive deck dialogue interview, Ron Sciarro and Paul Preston. Ron and Paul, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Park. Thanks for having us.
You are my third official deck dialogue where we get to record coming from our deck up here at Munns Park, Northern Arizona, looking out over the lake. And I guess I had a decided advantage in getting you two up here because, Ron, you've got a place 2 doors down from us.
Yeah, that works out well. We had to drive far.
Yeah, terrible place to do the podcast here, Park. It's awful.
Well, you guys had to come out of Phoenix, and you just drove up this morning, and I said, man, thanks for taking the time to come all the way up here, but it gave you a little bonding conversation time in the car, and so here we are. Beautiful morning out. We've had nothing but rain. Ron, I know you haven't been up here as of late, but everything's so green and lush. It's because of the wonderful rains we've had since around June 25th, I guess.
Yeah, and you had a lot of sunflowers.
And how long have you had a place up here?
19 years.
19 years. Yeah. And you've got a couple boys?
Have 3 boys.
3 boys, and they all grew up here basically during summers.
They have caught a lot of snakes in this and a lot of fish in this lake. So yeah. And I hate snakes, but I love that they love it. So
a lot of good memories.
Very good memories. Yeah, I would. It's been one of the best purchases that we've done.
Yeah. And Paul, you've got a place east of us here, I guess, along the Mogollon Rim, up out of Payson.
Yep, just outside of Payson. And for us Arizona guys, getting out of the heat is crucial. And so, yeah, we enjoy coming up and hiking, hunting, fishing, all the outdoor stuff. And funny fact about this location you're at, about 16 years ago, Ron and I started a little father-son trip, which is we now call Legacy Adventures. And we've been doing it with our boys, father-son, father-daughter outings. And the first one was here, about 40 yards from here.
That's right.
Seriously?
Yeah. We've done over 100 trips in 16 years and thousands of dads and thousands of kids.
Have you franchised that too?
No, not quite yet. We just have fun with our kids.
We have our plates full.
And it's just a fun thing we do to just connect dads and their kids. It's really fun. But the first one, just right down the road.
That is awesome. Well, thanks for coming up. We are here today to talk about Aqua-Tots. I have the two co-founders here. You have built the largest swim instruction franchise in the world, serving 120 communities through 14 countries, starting with one swimming pool back in 2005. Is that right?
Absolutely right. In 2005, we took Ron, being the genius visionary entrepreneur, when he was in high school, started teaching swimming in the summers rented pools around Phoenix and Scottsdale. Did that for 12 or 13 years. Yeah, in 2005, we partnered together. We were friends at the time and wanted to do something a little bigger than ourselves. And 2005, we opened the first indoor year-round AquaTots. Yeah. Here we are 15 years later, yeah.
Ron, what was the impetus? Was there a moment in your life that you thought, I've got to do this?
Well, my mom was in the fire department. She worked for the fire department. I trained to be a firefighter, so I was simply a lifeguard, and so wanted to help people. And my boss, who was in charge of all the lifeguards at the pool, didn't show up. He was moonlighting, doing swim lessons, and he called the lifeguard tower and said, "Hey, one of you get in the water. I can't come to the pool to teach today." And I was the only fool that raised his hand and said, "I'll do it." And not trained, but I got in the water and I attempted to teach a swim lesson. And then after I taught, the families that I had taught went to my boss and said, "Hey, we want to fire you and hire him." And I said, "Well, I'm not trained, and you need to go back to him." And he said, "No, you take them. I quit." And he quit, and I took those, and that's how AquaTots began.
And so did you have to come up with your own swim instruction then? Were you kind of out there winging it?
I was a professional wing it, yes.
Yeah.
So, and then I went to the Red Cross, got my training, and then worked on that for a while. And then when Paul and I partnered, we really dialed in on taking a program that had maybe 4 levels and building it out to be 8 levels and really expanding swim team, swim club, adaptive aquatics, and we started working together to build the curriculum. We spent several years doing that together until we got it, and then we went to the market and started franchising.
So, Paul, do you two go way back, or how did Ron get you then looped into this?
Yeah, we knew each other for probably 4 or 5 years. Before that, I had a career in the golf industry, so grew up as a very competitive golfer, played in college, turned pro, was a head golf professional at a very young age and loved that industry. But it was very early in our marriage, and my wife was a school teacher. We both wanted to own our own business. And so we were looking at businesses to come in and be part of. Ron and I were friends. He said, "Hey, Paul, I got this idea to take AquaTots from just a summer seasonal, summer business to an indoor year-round." And he had to explain to me what the heck we were even thinking about. And we really fell in love with the idea. The communities needed it. We had small kids at the time. We couldn't find a place to get good quality swim instruction in an environment that's friendly and clean and safe and smells good and looks good. And that's the vision we had for AquaTots back in 2004. And so he kind of sold me on it, and I'm a systems, strategic guy, and Ron's a visionary with tons of ideas, and it really married well, and started this journey with just one. And we never dreamed of franchising. It was just open one location and
go from there.
Go for it, yeah.
And I suppose back then, I was just, as you were saying that, Paul, I was thinking about our own kids. I guess what we did, we would go to the public pool and they'd have swim lessons at 5 o'clock and they'd get a bunch of kids in the pool and away you went. There was no real set curriculum other than they kind of taught you the basics. And then one of them swam on the swim team for all of 1 year, I think, maybe, and said, "Okay, enough with that." So what you guys were saying is there was no, I was going to say credible place, but that's not quite right. That's a place that is just focused with private swim instruction.
Yeah, I think the parents were saying, and I heard it from the beginning, and I think over the years of Paul and I working together, hearing what parents kept saying is, we live in Arizona, it's hot in the summertime, why do we have to sit outside and watch our kids do swim lessons? We're dying. Is there a place indoor that we can go? It's clean. It doesn't smell like a pool. It doesn't smell like the Boys and Girls Club. It smells. And we sat back and said, well, how do we create an experience like that where they can get good instruction? And we commonly, moms would say this idea of, how do I take my kid there? I'm not in the sun, and I enjoy watching my kids swim. So that's why when we designed the facilities, we met with designers and said, how do we do all this? How do we put all those together? And they said, let us study the market. They came back and gave us a concept of AquaTots and said, here's what we believe it is. And here's what we think you value the mom, the parents, and the children equally. So they both have a great experience. And then you'll have a customer for life. And that is exactly what happened.
And when you were doing all that, at the time you weren't thinking about franchising necessarily. You were just like, let's get our one thing up and running and maybe we'll build 2 or 3 here in the Valley, and that was going to be it?
Yeah. Paul and I thought that we would each split a general manager's job where he'd take 25 hours, I would take 25 hours, and we'd have this good life of time.
Yeah.
And we
Well,
soon
we're both
realized.
kind of on the verge of burnout. Like I was
Yes.
burnt out of my corporate career. You were burnt out of just the strains of small business. And we said, hey, we partner together. 2 minds are better than one.
Right.
We often joke, you put 2 of us together, we actually create just one man. We're about half a guys each, and we create one. And yeah, we wanted to be excellent. We were known for being good at what we were in our career, and we wanted to put that into something that we could be proud of.
Yeah.
And I think that's still what we're doing today.
How long until you started franchising? And who was that first franchise that popped up that said, hey, I want to do that?
Just a couple years. It was like 2007. So 2005 we opened. We were going. We started getting phone calls, believe it or not. And we answered the phone. Good morning, AquaTots. This is Paul. I'm scheduling swim lessons, and we had a young couple say, hey, we want to buy a franchise. And literally, I said my answer was, I don't know why you're calling me. How did you get my number? We're not franchising. And she was very persistent, and she became our first franchise owner, Jamie Cartledge in Peoria, Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
She said, I'm opening a swim school, and she saw the need in the community as well. And she goes, I love what you're doing. Your professionalism, your quality, you think through the details. And we said, and I had some great mentors in my life that were in franchising. So I grew up working at country clubs. In order to play golf, I had to work there. And I'm around business guys all the time. And some of these guys own Taco Bells and Krispy Kremes and Arby's. And so they were my mentors. And I called them and said, hey, here's our business. Is this something that you'd recommend franchising? And they said, I think you got something here. And we love people. So we're like, we want to help people open their own business. So we said, let's help you own your business. And so Jamie took that leap with us. And we didn't know what the heck we were doing, but we did it together.
Hey, we'll be right back with Ron and Paul from AquaTots. But first, I want to tell you a little bit more about voices. Now, if we've learned anything from COVID, it's that the future of creative production is through remote workers and freelancers. In fact, freelancing contributed $1.2 trillion to the U.S. economy alone in 2020. That's why Voices has expanded its #1 creative services platform to handle all of your production needs. Just submit your projects to Voices. They'll match you with the right talent for voiceover, audio production, music composition, and translation services with professionals in over 160 countries. And they're not only good, but fast. You get high-quality responses from highly skilled talent around the world in just a few hours, sometimes even in just a few minutes after you've posted your job. And that's why over 2 million registered creatives use Voices, including brands like Shopify, Microsoft, GoDaddy, Hulu, Black & Decker, and NBC. Plus, there's absolutely no risk to you of a production falling flat. Voices uses the exclusive SurePay service, so your funds are only released once the final files have been delivered and you are 100% satisfied with your production. So, if you're stressed, under the gun, and you want your project to turn out perfectly, but you don't know where to turn, visit voices.com and post your job today. That's voices.com, where a world of production talent is at your fingertips. So you've got it up and running. You've got your first franchise out in Peoria. Can you tell the story about the folks that came to you? Is it from Abu Dhabi? Do I have that
Kuwait.
right? Kuwait.
Yeah, Kuwait. So the Wall was our first international franchise in Kuwait. Had called and talked with Paul and ended up flying to the United States, meeting us, talking through, what the desire is. She had an experience, a really tragic experience. In Kuwait, they don't have the underwater system that we have. So they have, if you think of them as big water storage tanks, and they had a family member, a child, fall into there and drowned. And so she wanted to find a place where she could make an impact in her own country. The word swim school didn't even exist. So she found us on the internet and said, I want to come out. Met with Paul and I. Paul walked her through, here's what we do. Never done an international franchise. We don't know if we can support you. She again said, I don't care. I'll figure it out. I want to make a difference in our community. I want to make a difference in our country, so we don't have the experience that we've had in our own family circles. And so that's what she did. Paul and I flew out there. We went, what year was that?
It was 10 years ago. It was 2011.
Out to Kuwait.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
these are two Arizona guys who have never been out of the country.
Yeah.
Fly to Kuwait, and it was not Kansas. It was very different, and we had probably the most amazing experience of experiencing the Arab hospitality of people caring, and the fact that we got on a plane and flew out to help them and sit with them and work with them. And
Well, back then we were the support team.
Yeah.
Like, we have 35, 40 people at the headquarters now supporting our franchises all over the world. But back then,
Just
it
you
was
two.
me, Ron, and 2 people back home, and
Yeah.
we just celebrated 10 years there. And we are teaching thousands and thousands of kids to swim right now that before that didn't have the opportunity. But they've changed our lives. The law, her family, the Arab hospitality, and the love and care they have for their community and for us it's changed who we are today. 10 years later, I can say I'm a different person because of.
How so? What was it that they
You
did?
know, you show up to visit your friends in Kuwait, or we have franchises now in Saudi Arabia and Oman and Qatar and Lebanon, and you show up in their country, and you are a guest like you've never seen a guest. and we're not talking lavish. We're just talking about care and love. What do you need? Let's get you fed. Let's get you the right place to stay. And what do you need here? How you feeling? And just taught us how to really have radical hospitality, if you will. And that's what they're known for. And I thought the Southerners had hospitality till I show up with my friends. And here we are 10 years later, Park. And Dalal, who Ron mentioned, is one of the most dynamic, awesome women leaders and entrepreneurs I've ever been around. She's an engineer for Kuwait Petroleum. She's our master developer for all of our schools in the Middle East. And Ron and I call her our Ekti, which means my sister.
No kidding.
So she calls us a hui. And who would have thought? Like Ron said, we'd never been out of North America 10 years ago.
That is amazing.
And here we are helping her open her own business and really, being family. It's really neat.
We, the 3 of us, got to meet about 4 years ago. Hazel, no barking off the deck during deck dialogue conversations, okay?
I love it.
So we got a chance to meet in that. I worked with you a little bit on your brand story development.
Yep.
And heard a lot of these great stories and the work you guys were doing, where it's just like, no, let's start this little thing, and then to have this international reach, to have saved lives in the process, to have taught swimmers that are competitive swimmers, to help kids, learn about customer service and business building and showing up every day and going on to do other things. And we arrived at kind of an interesting, I guess, brand story for you that really plays off of it's not what you make swimming lessons. It's what you make happen in people's lives. Would you guys like to talk about what we did arrive at and how you've been using it ever since?
Sure. I think the what we arrived at is the idea of propelling life. Although we taught swim lessons and that was the delivery or the product, what we really found is parents got a peace of mind from us coming alongside them and teaching their kids how to swim. So if they were to fall in the pool, they can get out, or they could swim to the side, or they could do a back float or something that would save them or buy them time to help their kids get to a safe place. That in itself of saving lives, different from maybe dancing or karate or another business sport or activity. Parents really came in saying, hey, listen, we want to partner with someone who knows what they're doing. We'll teach my kid. We have a beach house, whatever it might be, that we don't want this to be something that turns out real tragic. So we partnered with them. And the idea of propelling life was not only just propelling students, we see the confidence in them, but then what we realized that we really didn't have an impact or a visibility into is how many communities were then also affected by serving in that community, where we now have staff at all these stores and they're growing and they end up becoming franchise owners themselves who have been 10, 20 years with us and grow in the system and then become their own business owners, and their entire lives change, where they were going to college and they said, I'm not doing this anymore, and I'm going to become a franchise owner. I love serving the community. I love helping the community in terms of just the water safety, but their staff. And we saw that all of a sudden change from a generation of us to the next generation of people who are making a significant impact way beyond what Paul and Jane and Heather and I considered of just a one school was much larger than that. And so that's if you look at what's happening now with AquaTots, they're impacting not just generational groups of people, meaning families bringing their kids, but we have parents who have brought their kids. Those kids have grown up.
Mm-hmm.
They are now having children and bringing those children into the school because they say, this is where I'm going. This is where my mom took me. This is where I took lessons. Although we feel a little old, it's where we see that as an impact.
That's awesome. Paul, did you guys have a hard time getting your people to kind of buy in to the Propel Life thing? Was it like, what does that have to do with swim lessons?
Yeah, I tell you, your process that you took us through, I was very skeptical. I'm a skeptical guy by nature.
Well, you're a golfer, so you're a professional golfer. You got to be skeptical.
Yes. I'm like, what are we doing? Why? We don't have to do this. We know what we stand for, and we spent 2 days with you and your team. And, and not trying to be an endorsement for you, but I believe in what you do. We left there after 2 days, and you took what we already were, and you helped put it to words, and you helped keep our staff focused. So we have, 9 words that describe what we do, and then we have the Propelling Life. And it was not a hard sell because it's what we were already doing. And so like Ron was saying, we're propelling kids through the water so that they stay safe and be safe, confident swimmers. But Ron referred to a little bit. We have all these swim instructors. We have 2,000 or 3,000 swim instructors around the world, who most of the time it's their first job. It's a very meaningful job. We're propelling them through life. We're teaching them leadership skills, our core values, how to do business. So they're being propelled as well. And then you go a step further and you go, we have people who want to open their own business, and we're helping them propel through life as well. With they're cashing out their 401ks and they're leaving a career and they're saying, I want to start an own business that impacts my community and helps my family. And so we're helping them propel as well. So no, it wasn't a hard sell. It was like the ding dong moment. Like, that's it right there. That's what we've already been doing. And in your team, it just really helped us. And here we are, I don't know, this has been 3 years now. I think it's been 3 years.
Yeah.
And those words and things are up on the walls in our marketing department, our ops department. When they're creating graphics and designs, they're using the things that describe our company because of the work we did. I don't think you knew I was going to say that, but because I haven't talked to you much since then, because what you did was so well done. We didn't need to talk to you anymore. It was like, we're just going to go implement it.
I've never thought about that as a business model. I need to be crappier at what I do, so you have to keep coming back. But I got a hunch you'd show up pissed off. So
I think you propelled us.
Yeah.
I think it's awesome, and we did get a chance to get caught up. I've seen Ron up here a couple times over the last year or so, but we were chatting the other day, and you had told that amazing story. Was it in Kentucky, Lexington, Kentucky, where you were out there just recently visiting a franchise and something pretty crazy went down?
Right. I'll let Paul tell it because it was pretty powerful.
I mean, one thing, we just have some amazing franchise owners, Park, and the Thayers, Jake and Lindsay in Kentucky are just some really neat people, and they've got 5 locations. We were out there. This is the amount of love. The reason we were there, Park, is they had said to us, can we have a family reunion? Can we get all the franchise owners together? And we said, yeah. And so this is just before COVID, and we all got together in Kentucky. And we were there, and we came a few days early with our wives, and we're visiting locations and visiting with our franchise owners. And while we're in the school in Louisville, Kentucky, the phone rings, and the mom asks for this instructor. Can I speak to the instructor? I think his name is Logan. Mm-hmm. And that's very unusual. Usually a mom wouldn't call and ask for an instructor. So she finally gets him on the phone and proceeds to tell the story of how their young toddler, maybe 3 or 4, It was springtime, cold out. They're on a pontoon boat out in the lake. They turn around. They couldn't find their child. And it had been 30, 40 seconds, maybe a minute. They still couldn't find him.
Oh, God.
And they finally see him, and he's in it. We're talking jackets and puffy jackets, and it's a lot of stuff to weigh you down. They finally look on the side of the boat, and there he is in the lake. He'd fallen in, and he's not, under the water. He's on top of the water doing what we call chicken star rocket, which is our way to learn to propel through the water. And he's on his back, doing chicken star.
What
rocket.
is that?
And Ron's being our instructor, but you want to explain a little bit more about?
Yeah, I think the concept of the chicken star rocket is that when a child falls in the water, if he can upright himself to lay on his back, the chicken, if you think of your arms coming out and then extending your arms out and then pushing down towards your feet, that rocket propels, so chicken star and pushing out, and then rocket, it pushes the child up enough to get a breath. And then as they're propelled up, they can take a breath, hold the breath, and float and continue to stay up there till someone can find them or get to a side.
Yeah. And here, this is what he was doing. And the parents were really upset, obviously, and he's just kind of like, "What's the big deal, Mom? I'm doing what I'm being taught to do at AquaTots." And he was out there long enough where his body temperature had gone down a little bit. He was perfectly fine. They got him for a checkup because his body temperature, I think, had dropped to like 93, 94 because the water was so cold.
Yeah.
But he was out there doing. It's just
Did he have a life preserver?
No.
Oh my God.
No. And I think that's the point, is that those stories, we continually get those stories all over the world of people just saying thank you. When we were in Vietnam, we had an interview just like we're doing today where parents are saying thank you for coming to our country. We don't have this, and we have these streams and rivers, and how do we help? They would ask questions. They would be speaking in Vietnamese as the interpreter's telling us, asking the very same thing that someone in America would be asking. I'm concerned about my child falling in the pool, in the stream, in the river, whatever body of water it is. And we just said, we're committed to that. We want to help you guys. We want to come alongside your family, get your kids safe and around the water, do a service that's honorable to you guys to make sure that your kids know how to be confident swimmers and they're swimming safely so they don't get themselves in trouble. And that's where we see this loyalty. And I think that's where AquaTots has continued to grow, because we're dealing with the most precious stuff. We're dealing with their children, which are the most precious to them, and their resources, their finances. And we're saying we value both of those. We want both of those to be from an integrity check. We want the value for what you're getting. And parents stay with us for years until all of their kids. And what we realize is, unlike maybe a shoe style that's in fashion, people keep having children. And we constantly have families or parents that started with us in year one. Their kids go through our program and graduate in a couple of years. They have a second child. We'll see families for 10, 11 years with their entire family coming through. And then their kids end up working for us. So it's a real special, when we think propelling, it's that idea of we're coming alongside them, and they really do appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, several great examples right there of propelling people's lives forwards, from the children to actually helping save their lives by teaching them the chicken star rocket. And that's amazing. That kid is a toddler, 3 or 4 years old, and was able to take care of himself in probably 52 degree or colder water. I mean, that is pretty amazing. And then the businesses that you help other people create to go out and have that same kind of impact. So from your store back in 2005 to how you've grown, and you've got kind of the flywheel going, but it can't have always been easy. What was like one of your biggest nightmares that maybe you thought it was going to, do you in, that AquaTots wasn't going to make it?
Yeah, we joke we're the 16-year overnight success. It's like people start, oh, you guys, look how successful you are. Like, yeah, it's been an incredible grind. In just a personal story, just before COVID, I was just on the verge of burnout. It was just a couple times in our careers. And so the hardest thing was not having we were just talking about on the way to come meet with you today, and I was reading a statistic in NASA. When they fire a rocket into orbit, it burns about a swimming pool size of fuel per second to get it into orbit, and then once it's in orbit, it burns the same amount of fuel as your like Chevy Suburban. So the amount of energy it takes to get into orbit, and Ron and I were talking about that this morning, is what we felt. That amount of energy it took from him and I, then our spouses are involved, our good friends are getting involved. It's just the determination to get up every morning and do the same thing is probably the hardest thing. Because we would joke every afternoon about 6 or 7 at night, I'd quit And I'd say, I quit, and I'll see you in the morning. Okay, because I got to get back. I got to go do it again tomorrow. And the grit and determination to get up. When you really, sometimes you just don't feel there's any point you're going to meet success. In having us together to do it, I'm telling you, if we were on our own, it would be a complete disaster. I would have tapped out a long time ago. And a lot of people want, we're Americans, right? We want to do this on our own. We're individualistic. And I think it's a big lie. I think we need each other. So the hardest thing was trusting Ron and Ron trusting me that we have each other's backs. We're kind of, you can visual two guys back to back fighting the battle. That's what we were for a very long time. Now we got a whole team that we're all fighting together to keep this thing going. But back then, it's just the two of us. And it was, we had houses mortgaged and credit cards maxed, and we had crazy conversations with our children about, hey, we might have to sell the house. We might have to live in an apartment. And it's funny what our kids value. They don't value houses, and they just value us. And funny story, we were telling that story to our kids, and they were like, oh, cool, an apartment, Dad. They have those big pools. And we're like, no, we don't want to live in an apartment, son. I want to live in my nice house. And so it's just what got us through, I would say, is doing it together.
Yeah. Well, and referencing again back to your professional golf work, I mean, that takes talent, but it also takes a hell of a lot of hard work. Do you think that grind of getting to that level also helped pay off as being an entrepreneur with AquaTots?
As you say that, yeah, Park. I wanted to play golf for a living for a long time, and realized that I was not nearly good enough. I was good, but I wasn't that good. But that grind, I mean, golf's a thankless sport, right? There's 150 guys playing in a tournament, and there's one winner and 149 losers. And so you finish third, and you had a great weekend to play, but then you didn't win. And so it did create a level of grind and commitment that you don't. Yeah. You could play golf on tour your whole life and never win and have a successful career. Yeah. And so, but now that you say that, yeah, it felt like Ron and I were grinding for a long time without winning.
I bet. Yeah.
I think the relationships of the franchise owners was a dynamic that we had a desire to do. But what we realized is we had one of our franchise owner one time, he was getting ready to, we qualified him and we were getting ready to award a franchise. We had dinner with him and his wife, and they shared with us, and our wives were with us. We were all sitting having dinner, and he said, this is my check. I've looked at all different franchise models, but I'm choosing this franchise model because of you guys, the people behind the signature, that if I should die, I know my wife and my kids would still be taken care of. And at that moment, that's probably our fifth or sixth franchise into the system, we realized, wow, we're really, someone's really believing in what we're doing. We need to make sure we honor that as well as we can, and take that with the truth of, we do know what we're doing, or if we don't know what we're doing, we need to find the people that do know it. And if you look at today, we're better together because our team that we have today are just experts at what they do. They know how to do that. So when a franchisee says, I need to do this with marketing, I need this for a design or a construction, whatever, we have the right people. When Paul and I did it with our two other staff, it was hard. It was a hard process. It was not hard's not bad. It simply was hard. We learned a lot from that, but we learned we are not good at everything. What we are good at is doing relationships well. We treat people well. We want to be from an integrity standpoint of what I say and what you do, we'll do those together. And even when it gets hard, we'll do those together. When we're winning, we'll do those together. And when we're losing, you're going through COVID, working through the dynamics of COVID, our team stepped up, rallied around our owners. We had owners on the call every day saying, let's take step one, this, step two, this. And we move through that, and we come out on the other side. We're having our best year we ever had in the history of 30 years this year.
A history of 30 years. You've been around 15 years.
Well, 15 years of franchising, 30 of doing swimming.
Oh, yeah. Going back. So you started you opened your first pool in 2005.
Right. Yep. Before that, it was Ron running a summer swim program.
I got you.
Yeah.
I got you. Okay. Well, thank you for connecting that dot for me.
and to Ron's point, going back, you're sharing about, one of our first franchise owners, Monish, and his wife, Hina, who were putting their trust and faith in us, which can be a lot of pressure. It is a lot of pressure. But as we went through it, the pressure wasn't to be perfect. The pressure was, we're going to get up every day and we're going to fight to create a great brand. We're going to fight to create great systems. We're not going to give up. And Monish had gone through about a brain cancer at that point that we didn't know about. And he shared that with us. And he goes, the determining factors, I knew you guys were going to get up every day and fight for our family. And we do.
Yeah.
And we're not perfect. Oh my gosh, we're the furthest thing from perfect. But we're striving for excellence. And that's what gets us up every day. And the difference, everybody says, what's the difference between AquaTots and some other franchises? It's this crazy cool combination with our franchise owners and everybody in the system. We have 43 franchise owners, 121 facilities open today, with another 30 in the next 12 months. So those 43 franchise owners are some of the most committed people you've ever been around. And so they believe in the core values. They believe in things like relationships over profits. They believe in challenging the status quo. And they're excellent. We say it all the time. I got better things to do than be average. I don't get up in the morning to be average. And all of our franchise owners get up in the morning to be excellent too. They don't want to be average. So it's a big separator for us.
Paul, you had mentioned about the goal is not to be perfect, but to get out there and do your best. What is the biggest mistake you guys have made that maybe our listeners would go, ooh, I'm glad they did it. Now I won't do it.
I think as you say that, Park, I think we've reacted too quickly in some things. Whether it was in marketing, like there was a season we didn't think we were supposed to market. We just teach great lessons and run a great business. You don't need to market at all. And then we put too much weight in marketing, and we kind of moved a little too fast back and forth. I think for a while we were known for a great facility, great service. You came into an AquaTots and it looked good and smelled good and it was well designed and comfortable. But I think for a while our product wasn't very good. And so I think in the last 5 or 6 years, we've kind of put all that together and we have a great product.
And by product, do you mean the actual instruction?
Instruction. I don't think our instruction was world class 6 or 7 years ago. I think it was good, but the enemy of great is good.
Yeah.
And I think we settled. We kind of, we didn't look at the brutal hard facts of our business. And I think that was a big mistake. We let people tell us, no, it's great. It's awesome. Like, didn't trust our instincts that it wasn't awesome. And you never get there, right? There's not like a dot on the map of success or excellence. But I think for a while we were a little overwhelmed and we took average for a while. And I think we've fought through that now.
How about you, Ron?
I think another one, I would agree with what Paul said. I think another is we slowed down this fast-moving train. We get about an average of 1,000 people applying to get franchises from us. And we only
a year?
Yeah.
Wow.
And we only award about 4 to 6.
So can I ask you real quick on that? Then we'll go back to that thought. So when you've got 1,000 of these coming in, you have to vet them and interview them and all the time it takes to basically say, are we going to vote you on the island or not?
Right. So we're real slow to award a franchise because we want to make sure, like Paul said, if we have just a little over 40 owner groups, we want to make sure they're serving that community really well. And they're in it for the long term. So there's a lot of people that have money, but a lot of people that have money with character and commitment to do the grit that you described earlier. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to start something, and then not to just start it and run, but to start it and stay. The staying is as important to us as starting it. So we don't want to have stores just to have stores. We want to have stores that are implanted in communities that serve well long term. So we are really strict on who do we let in, and we interview them, and we sit across the table. We have lunch with them. Paul and I sit with them, and they'll ask us, what's the hardest part about being a franchise? And I say, my same response is to trust us. To trust us when we say, don't do that, or no, or I get on the phone and call you because our operations team can't get through to you and your team is spinning out, and Paul and I get on the call and just say, hey, how are you? What do you mean how am I? And hang up on us and pick up the phone and call them 2 minutes later. They're like, well, why are you calling me back? Because we're in this together. Well, I don't want to talk to you. I know you don't, but we need to talk. And let's just have a conversation. And that idea of relationships over profit is most people wouldn't have that in our core values. We have that in our core values because we actually mean it. We're not afraid of profit. We want to have profit, but not at all costs. So we want to maintain relationships with good employees, good staff, meaning the staff to the families, and we want to make sure that they're taking care of everybody. So we're really slow to award franchises. We award them in territories that we know has a track record that can be verified that they are who they say they are when the times get hard, not when everything is good, right? We want to know how you are in the crucible of the conflict. That's how we want to deal, and we work through it. And so I think that's where we go. We could have expanded, have 1,000 stores. We just chose not to. And we chose not to because when we started ramping up really fast, like Paul and I learned real quick, we don't want to be average. And part of not being average is asking the harder question is, well, then what is good? But then how do you go from good to great? Well, that's the harder part where most people stop and say, good is just good enough. And I think we all said, and Paul and I and Jane and Heather, we would sit every year and go, if good's not good enough, how do we get great? In what areas, just asking, not from a perfection standpoint, but just what areas do we need to improve on to become great? And then who is that great person in that discipline? And Paul and I sit under their authority of saying they're experts at that. We get out of their way to allow them to do that so that we serve better.
How many stores do you have currently?
We have 121 open. We'll open about 5 more this year in 2021. And then 2022 is back on our pace pre-COVID. So I think we're going to push 30 new schools next year.
Yeah. And
just a lot of pent-up demand. And Park, I'd say 80 to 85% now of our schools that are opening are current owners. So we have the owners who want to expand their school footprint. And so we're not having, 30 new schools and 30 new owners. We'll open 30 schools with about 5 new owners.
So what's next? And just keep doing what you're doing. You've got the rocket ship off the ground of AquaTots, 16 years, burning lots of fuel. You got a little bit more of a flywheel going now, presumably. What's next for you?
Yeah, I think within AquaTots, it's doubling down on quality, doubling down on being world class. We don't compare ourselves to other people in our industry. We're comparing ourselves to companies like In-N-Out Burger or Target or Chick-fil-A. And the interesting part about what's going on now too, Park, is just like when Jamie called us to open the first AquaTots franchise, we're having businesses call us and say, hey, can you help us to develop our brand? Which is a new territory for us, and we're having fun with that. So we're helping develop some new brands right now.
Yeah, you have several different franchises going, don't you? What are some of the other ones you guys do?
Yeah, so a few years ago, we started with a brand, which is fun. It's got about 5 locations now. It's called KTR, which stands for Kids That Rip. It's an indoor action sports playground. So we're doing skateboard, scooter, parkour, trampoline, birthday parties in an action sports environment, which is very, very successful.
But that must have had to taken a hit during COVID.
Yeah, it did take a hit. But no, just like AquaTots, no closures. We have great business owners, and the cool thing about KTR right now is we train skateboarders in KTR, and it was just great momentum for parents to see great skateboarding in the Olympics a few weeks ago.
Yep.
And back in August, so it was that was fun to see.
That's awesome.
And another brand we've got 4 locations of right now. It's called Uncle Bear's. It's a grill and tap, so we're brewing our own beer and having great meals, and so we're helping them go from. They've been around about 20 years, 21
all down
years,
the valley,
all down the valley right now, and they came to us with a vision they'd like to help grow, and so we're helping them grow and franchising in the future probably with that brand as well.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome.
All in our free time.
Yeah, right.
Is that why I never see you up
That's
here at your
probably
cabin,
why.
Ron?
Yeah, right. Good point, Ron.
Yeah.
We got to change that. We got to get you up here. Well, gentlemen, thank you for driving up here. Any last, and the wind's about ready to blow us off of here, any last insights or wisdom for our listeners if they're out there trying to get something going and maybe they're running up against that loggerhead, Paul, that you did just pre-COVID of going, oh my God, I'm spent.
I think that the number one factor to success is just purely grit. I do. And there's a great book out there by Angela Duckworth a few years ago I read. And great book. And at the end of it, she just said, it's just getting up every day and doing it. And having good people around you who see the vision and doing it together. Ron and I are putting together the first kind of scribbles of a book we're going to be putting out. And part of it is we're better together and find people to do life and business with. And just get up every day and do it.
That's awesome. Ron?
I would think that, years ago when we started this process, we met with the guys at the Better Business Bureau, and then they had an organization called SCORE, if you remember those, where it was the seniors that would speak on operational excellence or how to help people get started in business. We actually pitched the idea of AquaTots to them years ago when Jane and I first started, and all of them said, that's probably not a good idea. Probably just stick with the Parks and Rec program, and that's good enough. And for someone stubborn as me who says that, I go, what? Okay, that makes me want to do it more. So to Paul's point about the grit is that became the very genesis of really saying, do I have a vision that I believe in? And can I get up every day to do that even when it gets hard? And I think what's AquaTots' predicated success is because we did that. We did that in an industry that we disrupted an entire $2 billion industry of swim lessons, who everybody said you can't franchise swimming because swimming is just done by swimmers. Paul and I are not swimmers, and we never had been. But what we did do is we had the grit and we had the vision to say, you know what, here's a need. And it's a need that everybody wants, that has children. And we don't want to develop professional swimmers. We want to prevent drownings. In order to prevent drownings, the bulk of the industry was in then let's teach kids how to swim. And we committed to that hard grind. We're not out of it yet. We continue to do it, and we have lots of people that work with us. But I would say the same thing as Paul. The grit to keep going and what you believe and what your vision is, it would be what I would encourage business owners to do.
Come on, you've got AquaTots, Propelling Life. And how many thousands of people do you think you've impacted?
It blows my mind, Park, to think. We run, our ops department will run a number, like we've taught, 25 million swim lessons or something. I'm like, how in the heck do you do that? Well, it's like how do you eat an elephant, right? Just one bite at a time. And so guys like you help me think of the big vision. I tend to stay down in the weeds, but it's fun to think, literally thousands of people change from kids learning to swim to parents having peace of mind that their kids are safe to business owners, families. Our families changed. Our families changed forever from this blessing of AquaTots too.
It's absolutely incredible. So congratulations on your success and your stick-to-itiveness. You have helped a lot of people and saved a few lives in the process.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome to have you. And by the way, on your way out of town, I know you got to go pretty quick. Can we jump down to Pinewood? I've got a problem with my chip, and if you could help me, I don't know.
Let's do it.
I'm shaking them right and left, and I've got the yips. Paul, can you get me out of the yips?
I can help you with that too, yeah.
Well, thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you, Park.
Thanks, Park.
Thank you all for listening to this edition of The Business of Story. If you like what you heard, by all means, share it with friends, family, colleagues, or anyone you know that might be thinking about starting a new business. And it doesn't have to get to the level of AquaTots. You're serving a bunch of countries around the world. Maybe it's just something that you are doing on your own, or you know someone that's doing on their own, and it's not as easy as they thought it was going to be, because it never is. I mean, you're literally jumping in the deep end and hope you can get yourself out when it's all said and done. Share this episode with them. And if I can be of service to you, visit me over at businessofstory.com. And don't forget our new online course, The ABTs of Selling. In under 18 minutes through 3 short videos with me, I will teach you the and, but therefore narrative framework that I have found in my 35 plus years of advertising and branding, the single most powerful story form on the planet, and but therefore. So check it out at businessofstory.thinkific.com. We've got a new book out, myself and Dr. Randy Olson, The Narrative Gym for Business, short 75-page book that dives deep into the ABT and how you can use it in virtually every aspect of your business communication. Check that out on Amazon. That is The Narrative Gym for Business. And until next Monday, when we will have another amazing story artist right here like Ron and Paul, remember that the most potent story you'll ever tell is a story you tell yourself. So make it a great one. Thanks for listening.